All right, coming at you with another Once Human guide, this time on the LEA Research Lab. We're going to do a little bit of a brief guide on how to get through the Research Lab. This is just sort of a little bit of the very intro part. It's just like a couple of guys you got to wade through here in the very beginning before you get to the first boss. We're going to go over all the different mechanics for the different bosses, and we're also going to give some tips and tricks toward the end of the video about things I recommend bringing with you in terms of buffs, deviants, and some extra strategies and stuff you can bring along with you. So if you want to check those out, those will be toward the end of the video. The first boss here is these two polarized sort of like mini bosses. One of them is red, one of them is sort of white or blue, representing fire and ice. The technique you need to do for this is relatively simple, even though I messed it up here and I left it in the video because we were figuring out what was the right way to do it, which is you'll see these two glowing canisters on each side of the room, one of them red, one of them white for fire and ice, and you need to stand within the circle and kill the correct mini boss. And if you do it correctly, you'll see that white light kind of get sucked into the tube, and that is your indicator that you've done it correctly. Now, don't do like I did, misunderstanding how the mechanic actually works, and step backwards out of the circle and then kill the boss. Because initially I thought that the boss just needed to be within the circle and then they would get sucked into the container. But it's actually the opposite. The boss does not need to be in the circle. You need to be in the circle. And that goes for whoever deals the killing blow on the boss. They must be in the circle. So I'll run this back here a little bit again while I'm explaining it. So you need to be in the circle when you do the killing blow. That means if you're running with more than one person and you're trying to get both done at the same time, like we're going to have somebody stand in the fire and one person stand in the ice, do not shoot the other element whilst your teammate is in that circle, because if you kill it and they don't, it will not count. This is very important. This is something that was confusing a lot of people, including us initially. If you steal the mob when you're not in the correct circle, it will not count, and you will just make it take longer and take more bullets and all that kind of stuff. Most of the mechanics for these bosses are just like every other variant of these bosses that you have seen since the very beginning of the game. They will stomp the ground and do an AoE, and you just need to jump over it when that happens. If you're in a group, if you can, try to be in voice comms or using in-game voice. That way you can call out, hey, the boss is stomping. That way people can preemptively look around and find where the boss is and jump over it, because there's going to be a lot of ads and a lot of confusion. Not so much in this first fight, but you're going to see this mechanic over and over and over again. And getting in the habit of communicating this is just going to make it easier for everybody, because it does do a lot of damage when it hits you. So, you know, you just need to match up the elements, get them captured into the containers for this first boss. Very straightforward, very simple. Don't shoot the boss if you're not in the correct circle. Even a damage over time like burn can steal the kill. It has happened. I do. So just don't even try and help with DPS if you can help it. Like, you know, just don't waste the group's time and your own ammunition and resources by messing that up. This first boss also spawns a deviant called Rebecca, which I will also be making a separate video on, but I will show here that it drops. It will drop immediately if you get it. You can capture it like every other deviant, of course, and then I will show here briefly what she does in the inventory, but I'm not going to go into a ton of detail on this because, again, we're going to cover this in a separate video on that particular deviant. But if you're looking for that deviant, this is where you find it. There's also some pretty good like selection of mods and gun blueprints and stuff like that that can drop here, just like all the other difficult content at in-game. So there's Rebecca. You can kind of get a little bit of a look on her, and this is the first boss. Very simple. All right, if you're enjoying the content, please consider dropping a like on the video, subscribing to the channel, and commenting down below. The best way to support what I do, and I very much appreciate it. Thank you. So for the next boss, this is boss number 2. His name is Dr. Mannheim. You're going to see a lot of those same mechanics again. He is going to spawn the polarized mini bosses, and you're going to repeat all the same mechanics that you did the first time. I do recommend having chloral armor on, especially for this fight. Also having spring legs is a nice thing to have to be able to jump over the circles a little bit easier. If you're coming in with like some particularly good foods, you could save it for this boss realistically, because the first boss is very, very simple, but this one is significantly harder in terms of the amount of health that it has, the amount of times you have to do this mechanic, and the amount of ads you got to deal with and stuff like that. So you could very safely pop your food buffs on this fight instead of the first one. It will throw the exploders at you, just like, again, every other variation of this boss you've probably already dealt with multiple times. He will throw these little balls at you as well, which do a lot of damage. From what I've noticed with this guy, he tends to pick one person that he's going to throw those balls at, and he just does it non-stop. He just never stops. So if you're the one who gets picked, most likely it's going to be on you quite a bit. Just get in the habit of staying near cover and stuff like that. When it's me who gets picked, I just let them do most of the elemental stuff, and I just stay in cover and around cover as much as I can to make sure I don't take like a crap load of damage, and I just direct those balls away. When you do it correctly, he will say a voice line, and then his damage immunity will drop, and you just, again, kind of do what you're probably very accustomed to doing with this type of boss. DPS his little sack so he doesn't throw it, and then shoot the weak point on his upper back when the little exploder guy dies. This fight is time based rather than progression based, so the more damage you do, the faster it will die, and the less phases you will have to do. Eventually, when you have progressed him through his second phase, whatever his health value is at, when he goes into immunity again, let me run this back here a little bit. He is going to do a spam ground slam attack that is going to hit the entire room. You need to be prepared for this or you will die. We all die here in the video, and again, I left this in so you can kind of see what not to do. There are boxes around the room you can stand on. I haven't yet confirmed whether or not, if you time it right and you have like spring legs, if you jump up in the air and glide, you can stay up there long enough, because it does go on for quite a while. To be safe, I would recommend jumping on a box or something like that to keep yourself safe, but it will kill you. You're not going to be able to tank that damage unless you jump over it or you get on a box or something, and it will always happen after he goes into damage immunity for the second time. It's not a percentage thing, as I said earlier. It's just a time thing, as far as I could tell. So just kind of be prepared for it as he starts getting probably below 50% if you're running with at least 3 or 4 people, and go ahead and preemptively get on a box and be ready for it, or you're probably going to get wiped. That is most of how this boss works. You can throw down a lone wolf whisper combat deviant, as I use in this video, to help with the ads, because there are a lot of ads. Deployable drones and machine guns also help a lot with the ads. Boss uptime, once again, is entirely like DPS dependent. Push DPS as hard as you can when the immunity drops, and then during this like second phase, he will spam the room and do a impossible to tank level of damage at the current level. We'll show it here again. He'll start slamming down on the ground real hard, and it's just wave, 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 wave. Like he doesn't stop. And then he will spawn this blue bubble around him. Again, there are other versions of this boss that do the same thing, but if you've never seen it or you forgot how it works, you have to stand inside of the bubble in order to do damage to him. So if you die here, once you get everybody pop back up and everything, he is not damage immune, even though he just did that. So move into the bubble and start doing damage again as quickly as you can. Again, maybe you can finish him here if you've got enough damage. Most of us are not optimally build at this point, so our damage is not the greatest. So you can definitely do it faster than we did. If you don't kill him fast enough, he will go into another phase, and you just sort of repeat all these steps again, and eventually you can bring him down. And again, you'll have, you know, the usual opportunity to use, you know, your currency to go ahead and pull for extra rewards. I'm going to pause here briefly. This is the final boss fight. There is a little bit of stuff in between this boss fight and Dr. Mannheim that I'm going to cover in brief detail. Most of it is fairly simple platforming. You just need to run through some areas, which is very easy to do now because you have full access to the bird 24/7 as your glider. When this content was originally made, that was not the case. In beta, you did not have access to your bird 24/7. So these sections were quite a bit more annoying. There was a lot more broken ankles and a lot more like actually platforming in order to get through it safely. Now you can very safely skip 90% of it just by gliding past, which is nice. But if you're wondering, like, this doesn't seem quite designed with the way movement works. It wasn't designed around the current movement. They have not updated it or changed it as of yet. So if it feels a little off, it is a little off. They've made significant gameplay changes since this dungeon was made. But follow along, do the simple platforming, and then you will eventually enter a room where there is a disciple that spawns, and you attack the disciple and kill it, and it will drop an orb. That orb will be a different color. You can pick it up and throw it like an explosive, and there will be these sort of like pussy glowing kind of growths on the ground that will point out in this fight as well, and they will be red, blue, or purple, and you throw the orb at the corresponding color to explode it, and it will spawn a polarized mini boss like you saw in the previous two fights. So, and we'll point all this out because that's going to be the main mechanic in this fight as well. When you encounter it on the way to this fight, I think it is their attempt to show you how this mechanic works before you get to the boss. So if you get to that room and you're like, oh, what's this disciple, or these like strange, like glowy, pussy looking things on the ground, that's how it works. And again, we'll explain all that whilst we're going through this fight as well. So what do you need to know about the final boss fight of the research lab, the Mother of Life? Well, the Mother is a jelly head who once again mixes in the polarized elements, this time throwing in a new element of lightning. She also spawns disciples on the sides of the room who need to be killed, and they drop the orb as we just mentioned. This is, we're starting out the recording like a little ways into the fight, but we haven't even done the first wave yet. This is just like DPSing. She will go immune and say a voice line, and then you see the little kind of growths start to show up on the floor, and then these portals open just like they did in the previous fight, and out of those portals are going to start pouring ads. There's no ads in the first phase, but after this the ads start flying in. A lot of them are just your basic ads, but the caped dog enemies start to show up here, which do a lot of damage and will kill you very quickly. So do keep your eyes peeled for the dogs. The disciples will spawn on the side of the room as seen here. They have their typical damage set. If you're used to fighting them, they will throw an orb at you, which I failed to dodge here, that puts a lightning dot on you. It does a lot of damage. Do try to dodge that. As you can see here, I pick up the orb again just like an explosive, and I throw it at the sack that we want to explode. The color of the sack will let you know what type of boss will spawn. Red will spawn fire, blue will spawn ice. So take a look around the room at what elements you need. I believe they are random and not the same every single time. In this case, we needed 2 fire, 2 ice. I think they can be in different spots though. So I spawned a fire guy knowing that I was near fire. Sometimes they don't really listen to you and come like towards you. I just kind of let that one go because it wanted to go toward the other side of the room, and my teammate was over there, and I was like, okay, he'll get that one. No big deal. I kill the disciple again to get another orb. This is later on in the fight. because I wanted to show what the lightning version looks like. You can kind of see him over there on the platform. He explodes. He does like lightning AoE around him when you break his shield. He's purple, just so you know what he looks like. And you spawn the lightning ones by throwing a purple orb at the purple sort of sack on the floor. And you can see the purple sack over there on the left in the middle. So when it comes time during the final phase that you need the electric one, which the electric one, in my experience, only spawns during the final phase after you've gone through this whole process once. If you're not sure how to spawn it, you need to destroy the purple sack in order to spawn the electric one. And then you just do the same thing that you've done again and again with these guys. You know, stand in the circle, kill them while you're in the circle. It will capture their soul or their essence or whatever it is that it's doing into the container, and then you will unlock the ability to once again do damage to Mother. Everything else about this fight is very much what you've already been doing. DPS down adds, play safe, try to keep each other up, throw down miniguns, drones. I recommend again the dog combat deviant because it will spawn copies of itself and distract the ads better than most other deviants, and that's really all you're using all this stuff for, is just to keep the ads off of you so that your uptime on the boss can be higher and you don't get overwhelmed and just die, because the ads do quite a bit of damage. So just keep repeating these mechanics over and over and over again. As Mother becomes vulnerable, you know, drop damage onto her. It's pretty simple once you understand all the basics of what you're trying to achieve here, and you realize like these mechanics are just repeating themselves. I do want to point out here in the final phase, this friendly little fellow will spawn. I've not seen him anywhere else in the game up until this point. I may be wrong. He may pop up in some other situations, but this is the first time I'd ever seen him. He's in a different type of deviant that has a chain gun, and they spawn on these little platforms on each side of the room. They don't seem very hard to kill. I burned him down relatively fast, but I did want to point this out. That way, you know, you can deal with that when it happens. Here my gun does break, and for that reason there's a recommendation I'm going to make in the list of things I recommend bringing, and you'll see me use here in just a moment, to have a all-purpose hand or two so that you can repair a broken weapon, because your weapons do take a lot of damage. All your gear takes a lot of damage in these dungeons, especially if you die multiple times or you full wipe or anything like that. So here's me using the all-purpose hand to repair my my boom boom, so I can get back on full damage on the boss. Unfortunately, I die at the end of the boss, and I just tell my teammates, don't worry about getting me up. You're on the other side of the room. Just kill the boss. You know, you guys are fine. It'll res me. So I spin the end of the boss, unfortunately dead. You know, these things happen. But once she's dead, you pop right back up. No big deal. And then you can move into the center of the room and grab your loot. And there's some pretty good loot that drops in here. You know, again, more mods, and also chance for like legendary weapons that you can break down and get like specializations and stuff like that. As you see here, I get a scourge, so a pretty decent little weapon that you can choose to use until it breaks, and then swap it around and break it down for the specialization stuff. So it's pretty straightforward. A lot of the mechanics are repeating themselves and being reused, and then introducing new mechanics that are also relatively simple. It's advisable, especially in the last fight, if you can, to stay relatively close together, because the damage can ramp up quite high, and you can almost be one shot by some of the things the bosses, the mini bosses, do throw at you, like the disciples. Their AoE orb that they throw on the ground can almost one-shot you, and they can also beam, which does quite a lot of damage, so you want to avoid that and be in cover as much as you can, or at least be nearby cover so you can roll into it, so you can break the beam, because it will kill you quite quickly. And it makes it easier to like res each other. It is tempting to break off and try to get the little mini bosses into the correct containers as quickly as possible. And if everybody's well geared and you guys all have good like self-sustain and all that, you can do that. But if you're running this dungeon early on and you're not quite like fully build and all that stuff, I do recommend trying to stay together, because it is a very large arena and it takes a long time for somebody to run from one side all the way over to the other side to res you, and that will significantly slow down the boss fight, because you're spending more time running back and forth trying to res than you are getting uptime on the boss or just getting the mechanics done. And that just eats up your ammo, eats up your heals, eats up your buff timer on your food, all that kind of stuff. So play it safe if you're not geared up and you're not used to the fight, especially like the first couple of times you do it. Now, as far as things I would recommend bringing with you, some of them I've already mentioned. Bringing the living armor / chloro armor buff from your deviants, bringing the spring legs buff from your deviants. For food and drink stuff, I would recommend whimsical drink for elemental damage, and shattered bread for 25% extra weapon damage. Both of these are recipes you can find out in the world. I have videos on them. You can find them here on the channel, and I will link to them as well. I do want to note that food and drink buffs do not stack, so only use one at a time. And then I would recommend, if you don't have the deviant, to get the all-purpose hand, as long as it's in the game. And we may, if you see this video on a different season and the all-purpose hand is not one of the deviants that's in the season, I apologize. But if it's in the season, try and get one. Once again, we have a video on that. If you're not sure how to find it, it's pretty easy. Just pull that up on the channel, and you can go find it. And it allows you to craft a item that lets you repair the lowest durability item in your inventory. So a good way to make sure that that is like your weapon is wait for your weapon to break and then repair it. Otherwise, it's sort of a little bit of a waste anyway, to use it, because it is somewhat of an expensive, not in terms of money, but in terms of time, the amount of resources you need to build up to craft the all-purpose hand. So it's better to let the weapon fully break and then repair it anyway. And that's the main stuff I think you could bring. As I said, as far as your deviant, if you want to use a combat deviant to help with the ads, I recommend the Lone Wolf combat deviant. It works really, really well. I would also recommend maybe bringing deployable machine guns and drones to help with the ads. I do want to make a small note on the machine guns and the drones. I haven't been able to confirm whether or not they can kill steal the boss from you. I'm not 100% sure if that can happen. And by kill steal the boss, I mean the polarized ads that are fire, ice, and electric. I haven't seen it happen, but just in case, I will put it out there as a disclaimer. If for some reason you're standing in the right place and none of your teammates say they shot the boss and for some reason it didn't work, it's possible that the drone or the machine gun tagged it and got the last hit, and that doesn't count as your kill. It counts as the deployables kill. I don't know if that's how it works. Like I say, I haven't been able to confirm or deny it, but I'm going to put it in there as a disclaimer. If you have an issue with it, maybe you can drop the MGs and the drones because they're having a problem. But generally, in my experience, there's so many ads running around that they don't have time to shoot the boss. They're too busy focusing on all the other stuff. And they don't do that much damage anyway. They're more of a distraction and an assistance with the weaker ads. They're not generally doing enough damage to kill bosses. But I just, like I say, I wanted to put it out there just in case for some reason you run into this situation. But with all that being said, that's pretty much how the entirety of the dungeon goes. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. If you have any problems with it, or if anything I explained here isn't clear, feel free to drop a comment down below. I will be checking and responding to all the comments, so I can provide any clarification you guys may need. And like we said earlier, if this video helped you out or you're enjoying the content on the channel, please consider subscribing and supporting the channel directly. We're heading down our path toward making YouTube monetization a goal of ours, and we're going to continue to cover Once Human on this channel, especially as the season ends and we go into a new season. Hopefully we're going to be getting new maps, new items, new recipes, all that stuff. I'm going to be making videos on and putting them out as quickly as I can. And of course, there's still like a couple of videos we're going to be making here on the channel anyway for some content we don't quite have yet from this current season. So hopefully you guys are enjoying the game as much as I am. Hopefully this video helped you out, and happy hunting out there. I hope you guys have some good and successful runs.